So this response is reflect on your experiences working with both your local teams and your global teams and evaluate the individual contribution to each of them. Well, I find that it was a benefit for my group that we only had 2 time zones to deal with. I only had New Zealand and England because I had 2 people from Salford, 1 from AUT and myself. Something that I found slightly difficult was that I was the only person from Unitec in my group, my team, my 12-person team. So I didn't have anybody to confer or talk to, whereas a lot of the other teams did have more than 1 person from Unitec in the team. But I had Matt from AUT, and he was fantastic to work with. We were just constantly on Facebook talking and just constantly in contact, and that was really good because I found like I always had somebody on the same page as me. We had the two guys from England. One of them at first was okay, like he came to a couple of hangouts, but didn't hear anything from him really. His name was Matt as well. It was really frustrating because he was not on the same page as us when it came to submitting the footage. A lot of his footage was portrait, not landscape, and it had copyright issues, and it wasn't really going with the original ideas we talked about. From the start, we had talked about death being rather than taking it quite literal, having it as a modern day thing, things that kill us in a modern day, like things that we take for granted, like smoking or traveling or working. And then if you take that deeper, we had the idea that work and things that you don't enjoy are slowly killing us. If someone's stuck in a menial job for 20 years, before they know it, like 20 years of their life is over and that's wasted, and just getting closer and closer to death because every second is technically killing us. I did a really nice time lapse on a tree that was deciduous, so it lost its leaves, but a lot of the stuff that Matt put in was driving along on a bus looking at a McDonald's packet, which also had copyright issues. So I just don't feel like he really gave much thought or effort into it, and he kind of just shot whatever just so to say he could submit something. Paul was a lot better, but still the time difference did have issues with the Hangouts, but Paul was pretty good. He was on the same page with the footage that we needed to get, and so he got rubbish. He had a bit of an issue with copyright, whereas some of the beer bottles he got were had copyright. But with his shots, they had to be fast because it was just so sad. There was no movement in his shots. It was just him filming an inanimate object. If he had moved his camera along to move past the inanimate objects, it would have been better. He did say he was going to reshoot some stuff, but I didn't see any of the reshot footage. Matt and I from New Zealand, Matt Crossley, did a really nice smoking. I went out and physically shot someone smoking, and he did an animation for it, and the way that the 2 pictures just married were just really well done, which clearly showed that we were so on the same page, that he hadn't seen mine and I hadn't seen his, but when we both showed each other our footage, it just worked so well together, just intercutting them. The movements were pretty much the same. Matt and I were constantly bouncing ideas off each other, having hangouts just the 2 of us because our time zones were better. And yeah, just constantly talking on Facebook. I think with the group, with the whole team, we needed to have a couple more hangouts together. We did originally decide that we were going to have team leaders from each group, and then they were going to meet, but nothing ever really happened from that, because at the end of the day, all the footage that we got was quite different and very different from my group's idea. It was very literal. There was a lot of graveyard stuff that I had to work with because I put together a final cut myself, and it was just lots of graveyards, a lot of graveyards, and one animation which looked quite cool, that the colour grading and everything looked quite cool, but it was of the music that I had was quite Indian, and the theme was death, and so she did an Indian girl dancing in a graveyard, and I thought that was way too literal. It looked really nice, and I have put it in more than once in my version of the final cut, but I do think that it was just a bit literal. I enjoyed the project. I thought it was a really good idea getting it together, but I do think there was stuff that needed to be improved and that we have talked about in class. Having deadlines for people was definitely a huge motivator, making everyone actually have their stuff in, but having deadlines as it went along rather than just one at the end, having another one that everyone needs to upload a certain piece of footage every week, so that way it was a lot less rushed at the end. I think, yeah, for my group, Matt was fantastic to work with and Paul was really good, but having no response from Matt from England was a bit upsetting because we were putting a lot of effort in, Matt and I, and having Salford's due date a lot later, a lot earlier than ours, was a bit mishmashy, but overall I really enjoyed it working with Matt, and even though I've never actually met him, he's a cool guy, and yeah, it was really good.